The Fer-de-Lance Deception by Colin Williams, a product of Colin Publishing, a division of CKRM Industries Trinidad and Tobago. Copyright 2017. Graphics by Janessa M. Kell. The Fer-de-Lance Deception, a psi operator, an invisible planet, a space bridge, a 1,000-year-old clandestine group and a rogue sea dragon are tied together by the lies of a desperate man. Other works by the author: The Rise of Tablet, available on Amazon Kindle Books. Remail and the City of Science, Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, Chapter 5, Chapter 6, Chapter 7, Chapter 8, Chapter 9, Chapter 10. Chapter 1, Father's Day. Althazar changed from a sea dragon into a plump human boy. His tail became legs, arms emerged from his sides, soft human skin replaced the rubbery epidermis of the sea dragon body. He emerged from the Caribbean Sea and casually walked onto a beach. His mother Idbin, having metamorphosed from a sea dragon into a young woman, was waiting to take him inland through the forest that bordered the beach. Idbin was lanky, dark, with long silky hair. She played a pan flute that resonated through the forest, and it harassed the macaws and monkeys into a frenzied chorus. Occasionally bucolic humans came across her path and recognized her for a reason that Althazar was unaware of, but he sensed their awe when they paid their homages to her. A settlement of pyramids was at the end the path, and smoke rose slowly from inside of the encampment point. 2 colossal stone heads stood on both sides of the gateway like sentries. Their lips were fat, the eyes slightly slanted, the foreheads were broad, and braided hairs were carved on the back of the heads. A large man stood with a spear and an iron shield behind the gateway. His eyes looked upon Idbin combatively. She approached and encircled him while she played the flute. "Your child is here," she said to him telepathically, and Althazar heard it through his own telepathy. The man looked down on him, and Althazar sensed regret from his father. "If I had only known," said his father verbally. Althazar's mother held the man's chin in a serious manner. "Are you ashamed of him?" she asked without using her mouth. "I am ashamed of the act that brought him to be. He will not know the joys of being a true human. There was a time when humans were under the foot of my race before the great flood of the earth. Now that you outnumber us, you think you are better," said Althazar's mother, and went on, "I can transform at this moment and crush this settlement." Then she grinned. "But you have smitten me too much to do such a thing. This is your son that I have named in your honor, King. He is called Althazar, which means of the king. It will be beneficial to you to pass on your knowledge to him, since he will live long after your settlement is swallowed up by the forest and your bones are dust. I will be back in 5 days to collect him, alive." Althazar stayed alone the first night on a mat. The thoughts of the settlement that poured into his telepathic mind kept him awake. They were different from the simple impulses of the sea creatures like the turtles he was accustomed with while living in the Caribbean Sea. "Father," he thought abruptly, and no one responded on the telepathic wave of conscious and unconscious thoughts. Besides the humans, there was another presence in the settlement that Althazar felt on the web of thoughts, and the presence intrigued him. He left his chamber, sensed that no one observed him, and he quietly went outside the pyramid where he was housed. He sprinted along the plaza until he arrived at a large unlit structure where the second presence was located. A thick stone door blocked the entrance, and Althazar shoved it aside. He went inside and came upon a sealed brown box. It was the only object in the enclosure. Voices murmured from within the box. They were garbled and clicked repeatedly. They were speaking to him. "Don't you dare touch that," said his father suddenly. Althazar spun around. "Step away from it," said his father. "What is it?" asked Althazar telepathically. "A prison for evils that will plague mankind if released," replied the father. "I can hear them. And what are evils?" "The opposite of goodness and righteousness." "And what are those?" "What the creator of everything gave to us humans." "So I don't have those things?" "No. Your kind have different rules of behavior." "Is that what my mother wanted you to teach me, your behaviors?" The father's face hardened. "Follow me," said the father, and they returned to the pyramid. Althazar was put back into the room and warned not to leave, but Althazar sensed a change in his father's attitude to him. The next day Althazar was taught mathematics, morals, and astrology by his father. Althazar absorbed all the information. The second day Althazar was taken to a large river where he turned into his sea dragon form, and his father made notes, asking him to do tricks like swimming from one point to a next in 1 minute, telepathically getting the fishes to leap out of the water, using 10 canoes to measure his length and examining his tail and side fins. The third day was spent again at the river, but the focus was on atmosphere manipulation that the father recorded. They journeyed into the cloud forest mountain that stood over the settlement on the fourth day. From the view they saw an ocean on one side and the Caribbean Sea on the other side. The father drew out a map of the world in the dirt and pointed out the different land masses from the north, south, east and west. The fifth day was the last he ever saw of his father. Idbin collected him at the entrance of the settlement without a word to the father. Althazar and his mother swam to the tip of the largest island in the Caribbean and went onto the beach. He was confused by his visit with the humans and asked his mother about the origins of their kind and the humans. Idbin replied, "My kin and I shape-shifted into the sea dragons to survive the Great Flood, but we went into a catatonic state. When we awakened, the world had changed. Some of the kin could revert back and forth between the dual forms while others could not. But there were a few who became stuck in the two forms, so half their bodies were sea dragon and the other half were human-like. The humans before the flood were slaves and food for our kind. It is unclear where they came from. Our kind came after the first humans and being superior took over. Do not concern yourself with humans too much because they are animals to be tamed. I will demonstrate this fact with the humans I am meeting here today." A 7-year-old boy and a man walked along the shore. A beached oar boat was behind them. Their clothes were different from the royal attire and the feather head dresses of humans on the mainland. Althazar looked to the coast where he saw an oriental sail ship and he presumed the vessel brought the humans close to the island. "There is Fer-de-Lance, the child, and that is Paul Chancellor with him," said Idbin, and continued, "They bring prisons and weapons from the east that they fear other humans will abuse. The items are buried in the islands and on the mainlands. Your father's people came from the east specifically to guard the box of evils that you came across." "Why do they look different?" asked Althazar. "That is a wrong question. Never look at the exterior of a person, judge only the interior. They look different because they think differently from other humans, even the ones in the east. Beware, Fer-de-Lance has telepathy, so guard your mind. Paul Chancellor likes to pay homage to me as a formality, but that ends today." "Great Idbin, we have more items for you to keep safe for us," said Paul Chancellor. Idbin spoke telepathically to the boy and man. She said, "Humans, as much as I know your occupation of collecting and hiding things from the rest of your kind, these lands cannot be abused as a disposal ground. There has to be a balance somewhere." "I understand your point. These lands have the potential to be greater things than they are presently," said Fer-de-Lance. Paul Chancellor spoke, "I have an idea. We will bring only that which is necessary." "No. You will come to me beforehand and I will decide what is necessary to be hidden in these lands," said Idbin. "Give us time to think it over," said Paul Chancellor. "No. You must decide now or never come back," said Idbin. "You cannot stop us from returning," said Fer-de-Lance. "Little boy, I can destroy your ships in my hurricanes and feed upon your bodies. I am superior to your kind, never forget that. Then why do you haggle with us?" asked Fer-de-Lance. Idbin placed her forefinger on the boy's head and the group was mentally transported into her memories of Mesopotamia. The group saw the cutting of stones, the carting of exotic birds along the roadways, the cultivation of land plots and the laughter of humans. Finally the group was on the shore of the Persian Gulf. 10 sea dragon heads pushed against the waves as the beasts came to the shore. They transmitted their thoughts collectively in a hive mind. Idbin hailed them and said, "Friends, I must go far west." "For what reason?" the sea dragons asked. "I need a territory for myself," replied Idbin. "There is enough space for all of us here. The Arabian Sea, the Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean provide an abundance of territories. What is really on your mind? I have known each one of you since we survived the Great Flood, but before the deluge I was a person who kept to herself. You shall always be my family, and I appreciate the help that you gave me in transitioning into this new form of life as a sea-bound creature. Go then, sister, yet you must promise one thing to your family, though," said the sea dragons. "Anything?" said Idbin. "The humans that remember our power over them before the Great Flood and who know of us are also in the far west lands. They should be treated fairly by you even though they are servants to our kind," said the sea dragons. Idbin's memory concluded and the Caribbean island beach returned. She softly held Fer-de-Lance by the ear. "You are my servant and I fairly haggle with you, child," she said to him. Paul Chancellor fell badly and convulsed. Fer-Lance tried to keep him down. "His mind could not take that carnival of information," said Fer-de-Lance. A noise originated from the Oriental ship and a moment later 3 coconut trees were halved next to the group. "That is a warning shot. You see, Idbin, we humans have kept a few of the weapons for ourselves," said Fer-de-Lance. "Don't speak to my mother like that," said Althazar, and he knelt to steady Paul Chancellor's head and continued, "Tell your kind to calm down. The son of Chi speaks and you should heed his words, or do you want me to tell his father that his son was attacked by the fellowship of humans that he belongs to? How would the keeper of the 9 plagues respond to that betrayal?" "Not good," said Idbin. Althazar heard the message that Fer-de-Lance sent telepathically to the ship that asked for time to help his comrade. In that unguarded moment, Althazar slipped into Fer-de-Lance's mind and went into his memories. He witnessed that Fer-de-Lance was told that his parents died on a mission in the Fiji Islands. Fer-de-Lance's mind suddenly closed to Althazar. Paul Chancellor continued the convulsions. "Stabilize his mind, Fer-de-Lance," said Idbin. "I cannot, because my parents telepathically programmed by mind not to interfere with Chancellor's mind," said Fer-de-Lance. Althazar and Fer-de-Lance kept their hands lightly on Paul Chancellor. His convulsions dissipated and he returned to normalcy. "We understand and will bring a list of items on our next visit," said Paul Chancellor and sat up. "But," said Fer-de-Lance. "Be quiet, lad," said Paul Chancellor. "We have a deal," he told Idbin. "Good," said Idbin. Althazar's memories of meeting his father and the Eastern men faded to black and he returned to his present predicament. "Now you see the reason that my mother and I patrolled the Caribbean," said Althazar telepathically to the frilled sharks and vampire squids that lived outside of his prison at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, and like their forefathers over centuries the creatures ignored him. Chapter 2: An Intrusion. Althazar sensed a lone human mind in the vicinity of his prison. He resented humans for their betrayal of him, and the memories of the day his life was destroyed replayed in his mind. Idbin and him swam idyllically in the Caribbean Sea, they frolicked with the whales and hammerhead sharks, swam in the cavities of the blue holes and hid from each other in the garden of seaweeds. A village was nearby on an island and they went there to visit the people. The humans gave them gifts of flutes and beads, then warned Idbin and Althazar that the men from the east were seen removing the items that they had buried years before. Althazar and Idbin found it strange since Paul Chancellor and Fer-de-Lance had not informed them about the removal of the buried secrets. In the evening, Idbin and Althazar received a telepathic message from an unknown sender who wanted to meet them. Curious, they went to the location and came upon a small oar boat that contained 5 human-looking figures in blue robes and with painted faces. One of the boatmen pointed an object at Idbin and she exploded in front of Althazar's eyes, and then his world turned to black. He was in his human form and trapped in a box so small that his shoulders touched the walls and he was hunched down. Now here was a human within grasp of his mind to lash out at. "Hello," a woman said telepathically. "Who is this?" he asked. "Raven. You are a mind reader like Fer-de-Lance." "Yes, I am a psi operator," said the woman. "Where is Fer-de-Lance buried?" "How did Paul Chancellor die?" asked Althazar. "I do not know much about those people. I am here for human, do not feign ignorance of those traitors. Both him and Paul Chancellor sent their emissaries to put me in here," he said, losing control of his emotions. His psi telekinetics churned both the warm and cold ocean currents into a violent underwater disturbance. "Pull me up," the woman shouted. "Who is she speaking to?" Althazar pondered, and he telepathically inserted himself into her mind that was unguarded by the confusion of panic. She was in a vessel, strapped down onto a chair, there was little legroom in front of her, she shouted